The president said he was getting rid of the name NAFTA because it has a bad connotation, and the United States was hurt for many years by the trilateral deal between the U.S., Canada and Mexico. He said he'd be terminating the previously established deal altogether. As talks continued, Trump conducted a wide-ranging interview with Bloomberg News. At one point, he asked to go off the record, a condition to which the reporters conducting the interview agreed on. The Toronto Star obtained and published the off-the-record remarks to Trump's public chagrin. The publication said that Trump's comments backed up Canada's suspicion that the U.S. was not negotiating in good faith. It posed the comments to the Canadian government on Friday morning as officials entered critical talks with their counterparts in Washington. Trudeau was not in Washington for the talks, but he said from Canada, "We will only sign a deal if it is a good deal for Canada." Again, no deal is better than a bad deal for Canada and for Canadians, and that's exactly what we are remaining firm on. However, we know that it is possible to get a deal that works in everyone's interests, Trudeau said. The Canadian leader also said, over the past year and a half, there's a lot of things that have been said from time to time. I think people have noticed that our government's approach is always to stay constructive, positive, to engage on the substance of issues, and to demonstrate that we understand that the path forward is one of making sure that there's a win-win-win on all sides. The president lashed out at Bloomberg at a Friday afternoon event as very dishonorable people for sharing the comments he made that are not known to have been leaked by the news outlet. He said that off the record is not a legal term, but they violated it and did so purposefully. Trump fumed on Twitter, "Wow, I made off-the-record comments to Bloomberg concerning Canada, and this powerful understanding was blatantly violated. Oh well, just more dishonest reporting. I am used to it. At least Canada knows where I stand." The White House was on the hunt on Friday for the source of the leak that some observers believe came from within. The president admitted to making the statements that would have been on tape at his afternoon event. He never claimed that he did not make them, only that they were not meant to be shared. He told Bloomberg on the record, per a transcript posted by the outlet, "I think Canada's going to make a deal at some point. It may be by Friday, or it may be within a period of time. But ultimately they have no choice. I think we're close to a deal, yes," he said. The deal he said on Monday that the U.S. had reached with Mexico is incredible and will help keep U.S. companies in the United States. NAFTA was the worst deal, one of the worst deals ever made, he asserted. Speaking to Bloomberg off the record, he'd said a deal was possible totally on our terms and that he'd threatened Trudeau's government in the talks with tariffs on Canadian cars. Off the record, Canada's working their ass off. And every time we have a problem with a point, I just put up a picture of a Chevrolet Impala, Trump said. According to the Toronto Star, Trump also said, "Here's the problem. If I say no, the answer's no. If I say no, then you're going to put that, and it's going to be so insulting they're not going to be able to make a deal. "I can't kill these people." As the president was talking in North Carolina at an event, he said if a deal doesn't come about with Canada, we'll just have to tariff those cars coming in. "That's a lot of money coming into the coffers of the United States." Trump said, "NAFTA was a disaster, and we've changed it around." Just as he was wrapping, the U.S. Trade Representative's office released a statement that said the U.S. was submitting a formal notice to Congress, as required 90 days before a deal can be signed, that it has a deal with Mexico that Canada could later join. Today, the president notified the Congress of his intent to sign a trade agreement with Mexico and Canada if it is willing 90 days from now. The agreement is the most advanced and high-standard trade agreement in the world. Over the next few weeks, Congress and cleared advisors from civil society and the private sector will be able to examine the agreement. They will find it has huge benefits for our workers, farmers, ranchers, and businesses, Ambassador Lighthizer said. The statement declared, "We have also been negotiating with Canada throughout this year-long process. This week those meetings continued at all levels. The talks were constructive, and we made progress. Our officials are continuing to work toward agreement." Talks were to continue next week between Lighthizer and Canadian Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland. Freeland said at a news conference on Friday afternoon that she isn't negotiating with Trump, she's working with Lighthizer, whom she suggested she trusts. She said Lighthizer had brought good faith and goodwill to the negotiating table over the past year, that they'd been talking to each other. "It is going to take flexibility on all sides to get to a deal in the end," she said in a rebuke to Trump.